is going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back again with another morning stream for you guys after Spurs drew 2-2 away at Brentford on the return of the Premier League on Boxing Day yesterday. Almost like Tottenham have never been away, isn't it, Brian? We've got Brian in the studio yet again after yesterday. He was obviously live with you following all the action on the watch along with Ashmata yesterday. I was at the stadium with Amir following all the action live as it happened. Well, there's a lot of topics we're going to discuss today, and obviously the January transfer window and other clubs making signings. We'll get into those topics a bit later, but first we'll discuss all the goings on yesterday and what exactly panned out, and we're gonna take a look at the game, what went wrong, what went right, and then we'll get into everything else. So let's talk about let's speak about the match review first of yesterday. So we drew 2-2 with Brentford. It was a game which we've seen so many times before this season. I mean, how many times are we going to go behind and having to claw back the situation? And I was speaking to one of my friends yesterday, and I was saying, like, you know, the question is always, is it 1 point gained or 2 points dropped off when you come back from 2-0 down? And logic usually states in those kind of situations it's 1 point gain, because if you find yourselves in a situation where you're 2-0 down and then you gain a point, that's like you've shown good character, you've come back from a situation where you're very unlikely to get anything. So you've got to say it's 1 point gain. But with the fact of the matter is, we're always 1 or 2 goals down. So I think there has to get to a point where surely you have to stop saying it's 1 point gain when you're continuously giving yourself so much to do, and now it's happening where like we're giving ourselves too much to do, and we're getting maybe a point, but we're not getting all 3 because we're always coming back from individual mistakes and bad first halves. And we're now in a situation when we do come back from 2-0 down, it's still not enough because you're continuously putting yourselves on the back foot.
Well, I think what we've got to look at as well, Simeon, is not only do we look at it as 2 points dropped or 1 point gained, we've got to stop saying good character to come back. Good character is not going 2-0 down in the first place and having it repeatedly happening and then having to claw yourself back. These are professional footballers that get paid a hell of a lot of money, and we know what's going to happen. Other teams know what's going to happen. The fans know what's going to happen. Other sets of fans know what's going to happen. And yet this still continues. And we were given that line, conserving energy. Was that for the World Cup? If it was, the World Cup's over. That can't be used anymore. And you could have predicted this before the game even kicked off. Before the lineups came out, you could have predicted. We were just listening again. The stats of being 2-0 down for the 6th game in a row. We've been behind 9 games in a row. 9 games in a row. We've been at least one goal
in the Premier League, I believe.
Yeah, we've been at least 1 goal down come half time. How these stats are so predictable? How can that not be stopped? By a team, by a manager. The manager, you've got to look now. I'm still 100% Conte in, but he is not. He is not beyond being asked questions and being held accountable. It just was the just Spursy return, wasn't it? I hate to say it.
Yeah, I guess it's difficult where you lay the blame totally, or first and foremost, because as you say, I think when this keeps happening again and again, I think Conte has to take some of the blame for sure. But as well, you know, things like Eric Dyer taking a swipe at a ball unchallenged and going out for a corner and us conceding that first goal, the defence was a complete mess again. Like, he has shown since he's come to this club, he can get performances out of players like Eric Dyer and stuff like that to a decent level, and that's what got us top 4. But when we start with the defence like we did yesterday, of that back 5, like, obviously they're probably better than how they showed for like the first goal, but they're not. This isn't a defence which could compete with the others above them in terms of who we have personnel wise. It's probably like a Europa League mid-table, or probably worse. It's probably like a mid-table, maybe upper bottom half, like Premier League side. So to expect Conte to continue to work miracles with this back line is also something that is unrealistic. And we know we've needed upgrades in the back line for a while. We needed it in the summer. We got Longley, which I think he's done okay, but we needed more than him. Right wing back, we need more than him, and we've continually going with this back line, and I'm confident if we had a stronger back line, we'd be better in possession, building from the back, and would be a lot stronger defensively when teams come onto us. At the moment, this back line is very brittle, and that's why we've conceded, I think, by far now the most in the top six. And I think as well, when you look in the top half, I think we're probably one of the most conceded.
Without a doubt. When you look at it, that back three yesterday that started cost a combined total of £5 million. £5 million that back three cost. And if you look at it, if you want to expand on the back five, you had over £70 million worth of talent, if you want to call it talent, on the bench in Sanchez and Royale, which just goes to show how bad our scouting is, how bad our transfer activity has been. But you spoke about the two players. So for the first goal, I think the Tanganga Tony matchup was wrong. For the power on the deck, yeah, but Tanganga against Tony in the air is just a non-starter, and he was yards off him on the header for that.
And it led to a difficult situation because Tanganga came over to Tony, leaving him, and he was in a tough situation because if Tony wins a flick on, because Tanganga was more on the right side and Mbeumo was out on the left, because he moved centre to deal with that header. If he missed it, it meant Mbeumo was free on the left. He did miss it, and it meant Dyer had to come over, leaving even more gaps. And Longley and Basuma had two men to deal with. They didn't communicate it very well at all, and it just created complete problems for that first goal. And it was a bit of a shit show, to be honest. But I think it led from a long ball over the top. It really should have been Dyer dealing with that header. I think if Dyer deals with it, even if Tony wins a flick on, at least Tanganga is with Mbeumo. The fact of the matter is, Tanganga left his position. He thought he could win the header. He didn't, and it led to all these problems.
It did. You're back on the mic, and then we've got to talk about Eric Dyer, obviously. I mean, first of all, Eric Dyer has been here now, 8 years? 9 years, maybe, approaching, and he has had good periods. There is no doubt whatsoever he has had good periods where he is, and last season was one of them. But this season, since he got into the England squad, he has been absolutely horrific with every part of his play, and I don't even understand.
He was very lucky to get to the World Cup, considering if it seemed as though his form leading into the World Cup was like he was trying his best to try and get himself not called up. But I think he was lucky, maybe not lucky, but in a sense he was a bit lucky in the sense that his form just after Conte came in was so good.
It was incredible.
That I guess Southgate overlooked the bad form leading into the World Cup and decided to go with him. But
how you do what you did.
But the last few weeks before the World Cup and now the first game after the World Cup, it's been shocking. It's been horrendous. He's making really bad Eric Dyer-esque mistakes, which he was associated with before Conte came in. He was associated with these brain farts, individual errors, that it would happen at least once a game, basically. But he'd kind of ironed them out when Conte first came in for the first 6 months or so, and even maybe at the beginning of this season, he was also pretty decent. He'd ironed out these mistakes. He wasn't making costly errors as much. It'd gone from maybe one a game to maybe one every 3 or 4 games. But maybe we are seeing Eric Dyer revert back to the type, and maybe we all knew that as much as we were all impressed with Dyer and his form once Conte came in, we all knew that he needed a challenger to push him to upgrade so that he's in fear for his spot, or we needed to upgrade him, which is also definitely something, and have him as like a backup centre back. We didn't do either of those things in the summer, and it's in a position now where we're relying on him every game, because without him, our defence is even worse. But with him, he's still making costly errors now on a gamely basis. But the problem is, we can complain about Eric Dyer all we want. After Romero, he's probably our best defender. That's the reality right now, and that's the state of our back line.
It is, and like I said, what I find with him is obviously, when there is no pressure on him, and when he wasn't in the England squad, and he was not in the limelight, he got himself back in the limelight by getting himself into that England squad and putting in performances like that. But as soon as he starts getting the recognition and is deemed an England international by the manager again and is in the limelight, these stupid, pointless mistakes happen. And I mean, yes, he can make the odd mistake like he did against Liverpool, he did against Newcastle. That was heat of the moment stuff. But the clearance that he attempted yesterday, he had time to bring the ball down. He had time to put his foot on it, let the ball bounce. He had time to see what he wanted to do, but he just took one wild swipe for no reason whatsoever, and it goes off for a corner. You can't be having that. Like you said, after Romero, that's your top defender at the club. That's the concentration levels that we have. It's unacceptable. It is totally and utterly unacceptable for him to be able to do that. And you know what will happen? He will start against Villa.
Oh, he has to.
That's the state. That's the you have Romero. Well, mate, I'd rather start Romero on the right if he's starting, Longley in the centre, and Ben Davies at left back, or left centre back. Sorry, if I had my choice, that would be the back three against Villa, barring Romero being available and fit, ready to play. It's got to stop. You can't, even if he is the better defender, you've got to be held accountable. If you make errors like he has been making, you can't just say, I'll carry on making them, you're in. You got to say, no, Eric, you're letting the club down, you're letting the side down, this can't happen, someone else is getting a go. That's what it's about. Like you said, there should be someone to compete with him. But
the reason I don't think he will do that is because Conte trusts him. He's one of Conte's most trusted players. With all the talk at the moment, he's going to get a new contract. So which seems to be the case. I think Conte's gone on record many times of his trust in Dyer. So I think he isn't gonna, even though he's in a bad spell of form, I don't think he's gonna take him out of the team.
But how can at the moment? I understand managers trusting players. I understand that, especially when a manager comes in, everyone clean slate. I get that trust. I get the loyalty. Loyalty is a huge important thing in my life, away from football, in football, everything. But when a player keeps making costly errors, these aren't just errors that aren't leading to anything. They are costing us. The Liverpool game, the Newcastle game, yesterday. You have to say, listen, I trust you and everything, but your form is letting you down. And I can't, especially with the way things are at the moment, with the fan base, with everything that's coming to a head, you can say I trust you, but surely you've got to say, you're making mistakes. I need to take you out of the limelight. This can't keep happening because the club want top four, and these points are costing us, especially then when you go on to see all our rivals around us win.
And it was a very costly day yesterday. In terms of how the game went statistically, let's get look at the stats from SofaScore for yesterday's game. So as you can see, actually Tottenham had 61% possession compared to Brentford's 39%. However, Brentford's XG almost double of Tottenham's, 2.15 to 1.07. So Tottenham definitely, according to the stats, lucky to get a point. That's what they're suggesting.
Yep.
Despite the fact that we had 15 shots to their 9, 8 on target to their 5, they had the better chances. In fact, they had 3 big chances, and we didn't have any big chances according to SofaScore. But if we look in the difference between the first half and the second half, the XG was 1.21 to Brentford, 0.24 for Spurs, and total shots. We still had more shots than them, but on target was the same amount. Second half, it was a lot more dominant from Tottenham. XG is still in Brentford's favour, 0.94 to 0.83, but 9 shots to 5 shots on target to Brentford's 2. If you look at the progress bar as well, I think it definitely tells the story of the game here. You can see the first half. Majority. Is it working still? Yeah. I think no, because I've changed tab. One sec. Doesn't seem. I think it's frozen. I'll try. Let's try and reconnect it. Give me a sec. But I think basically, the pro. Oh, when we get it up in a sec. But it basically tells the story of the game. It should be working now. Yeah, you go. If you look at that, first half, the green is Brentford, blue is Tottenham. First half, majority Brentford, Tottenham very little attacking. In fact, the first half, I don't remember a chance we had.
We had a couple of those shots where Kulusevski came in and they P-roller shots. Son had one as well.
Yeah, from outside the box.
Yeah.
But look in the second half. Brentford obviously get their goal very, very early on, and then it's all Tottenham pretty much from like pretty much from the hour mark all the way to the end. And considering how we finished the game, you can argue we were maybe unlucky not to win, but again, the fact that we were 2-0 down, I think you can't keep doing that and expecting to get results. But the stats shows a fairly even game. Probably you have to say Brentford more unlucky than Tottenham not to win. If we're looking at individual players, it says here, well, according to this actually Højbjerg was man of the match. Let's talk about Højbjerg actually. Looking at his heat map yesterday, I think that probably that represents exactly what kind of player he is, covering lots and lots of ground. Had lots of touches, 2 out of 2 dribbles attempted, but also the ground duels quite strong. 5 out of 8. Long ball accuracy decent, but he got most importantly, he got his 9th goal contribution in all competitions yesterday. 4th Premier League goal, 5th goal in all competitions as well. We're now sitting in December for a midfielder like Højbjerg, who not known for a player who likes to get goal contributions. We've spoken a lot about Bentancur getting goal contributions, but Højbjerg stepping up at a big time yet again for Tottenham this season. He's done it a few times now when we've needed him to. Are you getting more and more impressed with his ability to affect things in the final third, coupled with the fact that he's very strong in his defensive game as well?
Well, you know, Simeon, how much I love Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. I've loved him since we signed him. I was totally gutted. Do you remember we were at the Aston Villa game and I went to the toilet and he scored of all players? He just keeps improving. He keeps improving. He's a player that you want to talk about trust. Højbjerg doesn't let Conte down. Højbjerg goes on to games and says, and he's like, I trust you, do what you do. And he's doing exactly that, if not exceeding. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg does what Conte asks of him. Yes, there's some games he could have done a better pass or been more proactive or been more involved in the full game as opposed to patches. But you know what you're getting with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. You know that he's going to go out and perform and give everything to the cause, unlike Eric Dyer. But what he is adding more consistently is his goals, and like you said, his goal contributions. And those goals, if you look at those goals, have all come at important moments. They haven't been like when we're 3-1 up and you look at the Champions League goal against Marseille. They have all come at times that really, really matter. He keeps going from strength to strength. Yes, could he be upgraded on in the market with a big purchase? Yeah, he could. Do I think we need to? He's the least of our worries. He's fundamental to me in this squad. And like I said, the defence is the one that needs work. But very, very impressed with him, but not his midfield partner of the day.
Agreed with that. Yeah, I think Basuma definitely struggled a lot more. Obviously, you end up getting booked as well for a foul on Ivan Toney, and I think there were big question marks going into this game because we knew Basuma was probably going to start, seeing as Bentancur's out injured. Ollie Skip as well with illness, so we knew Basuma was going to get a start, and it was probably going to be in his less favoured formation 3-4-3, which he hasn't really shone. And I was kind of hoping that going to this game, he would have spent a lot of time working this formation and get the right balance.
Yep.
He would gain in confidence as well with some really good performances just before the World Cup, leading and some looking quite confident as well in the friendlies before the season restarted. But unfortunately for him, whether it be because it was a 2-against-3 and he was outrun or whatever it was, he definitely was struggling throughout the game, especially on the ball. wasn't really able to impose himself, and only really got into the game once Brentford was starting to sit back a bit. Once they were 2-0 up, and he was given a lot more time and space. But it does worry me how he's struggling when he is being pressed a lot for some reason. I guess it's difficult when you're up against 3 centre mids and you're in a 2. It's going to be naturally a lot harder, and maybe he's struggling to find that balance. But we need him to get up to speed in this formation as quick as possible, because he can't be a player that can only play in one formation, and that's too hamstrung.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it. I looked at it when we signed him. We were all very, very excited, very, very excited about the prospect of what he could bring to the squad, bring to the table. And he had the COVID when he first joined, when we went out to Korea or when we were out in Israel. I can't remember which period he had COVID. I think it was Korea, which would have slowed him down a bit, obviously. But I really thought players like him and Jed Spence and others like that didn't go to the World Cup and are new to the squad we're going to get this time under Conte and really flourish, and have Conte have the time to say, right, now I can put a lot more time and focus into getting you into the player I need to be. And yesterday, and every single time, in all honesty, when he's come on when he started, he's flattered to deceive. When he comes off the bench, he has made big impacts in games. And you can see the player that we bought and the player that we think's there. I still think he will turn out to be a fantastic player for Tottenham Hotspur. But right now, he is flattering to deceive when he has 90 minutes, in my opinion. And he's very lucky that that second goal was ruled out for offside, because he tried to do too much. He had a heavy touch. He tried to turn on the ball, falls over, and that could have been 2-0. Very, very lucky that was ruled out for offside.
Yeah, it was a marginal one. He lost the ball in a very dangerous area. He did get very lucky. I did feel like he was a bit better when given time and space, which was good, and it allowed us the platform to build and put Brentford under serious pressure late on, and obviously nearly getting all 3 points. But it was worrying how poor he did look in the first 45 minutes, or first hour really, and that's something he needs to get to grips with as soon as possible, because we need him. We can't be so heavily reliant on Bentancur in this formation. We need him to be putting in similar level of performances, and I do think quality-wise he's capable of it.
Yep, I mean, the thing that got me yesterday, and I was talking about it with Ashmatic during the watch-along, is you look at Brentford, and Brentford know what their strengths are, and they play to it. They play to their strengths, they do what they got to do, and they get the job done and put in performances. We categorically know that our defence is a huge, huge issue. A huge issue. And if you look at our forward line, and if you look at people like Basuma, Bentancur, our strength is definitely going forward and attacking the players that we have moving forward. But we aren't playing to that strength. We are so worried about protecting the defence that we're like, we've got to look after this, rather than saying, do you know what, let's go and hurt teams and play to our strengths. And Basuma could be a huge asset in that. And we are not utilising him in the areas we need to. We are not utilising the forward line the way we have to, and it's concerning.
Let's talk about that fun line. Obviously, Harry Kane getting back on the score sheet after his penalty miss of the World Cup, and nearly getting a second with a header which hit the bar as well. Very unlucky not to get a second there. But look, obviously that's happy days. That's the positive. The negative, though, a lot of people talking about is Heung-min Son. Another performance which he flattered to deceive. I did think there were times where he was breaking into space with pace and looking to drive through the heart of Brentford, but didn't really get into the box or have any serious efforts. There was one, if I remember, late on, which we were right behind. It looked like it was heading right for the corner. It went through the player's head. I think it was a good save in the end by Raya. But he had 3 attempts, I think. I think they were all from outside the box. And all efforts which are fairly tame. He hasn't had the best season so far. He hasn't looked like the same Sonny of last season. He didn't score a goal at the World Cup for Korea, although he did have that great assist which got them through, but he didn't score a goal. I mean, people are worried about him at the moment and his performances, and yesterday's performance didn't do enough to alleviate those worries. What's your thoughts on Sonny right now?
So I think Sonny yesterday in the second half, when he went a little bit more central, definitely impacted the game more than he did in the first half. But this isn't the Heung-min Son that we have seen for seven years or whatever it's been. He has set such high standards for himself, and we expect so much from him, that this season is complete night and day. Do I think he will come back? 100% do I. We got to remember last season, at this time last year, he'd only scored 2 goals as well. And then he absolutely went on a goal. It became a goal machine. But it is concerning, isn't it? He's not having that much involvement. He's not having that much of an impact. Even some of his link-up play with Harry Kane looked off yesterday. There, overhit passes, and that's both of them. That's not just Son to Kane. Kane, I don't know if you would have heard this stat, or heard it since you got home, but Kane in the first half had the fewest touches, including the 2 goalkeepers.
Kane did.
Yeah, but back on Son. We know he's got in him. There is definitely something up with him. There is definitely something up with him, and we need to find the solution, and quick, because again it's another lacklustre performance, and they're starting to rack up now, aren't they?
Unfortunately, this season for sure. And the problem with Sonny is, I think his biggest strength, I think he's one of the best in the league, is running in behind and his finishing.
Yeah.
And obviously shooting outside the box. Those are some of his biggest strengths. I think when it comes to his dribbling ability, taking people on 1v1 when there's very little room, being in congested areas, he can be a bit, and also his hold-up play. I think when he's relying on those things, when he's not scoring and he has to rely on those other things of his game, he can be a bit on the periphery and he can be a bit ineffective. And I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. I'm not saying he's finishing off. I don't think he's getting to the finishing positions as much as he was last season. He's not being found as many times running in behind like he was last season and getting in those one-on-one situations where he's so clinical. And I feel like a lot of the defenders are getting behind him, making sure they're not turning him, and he's having to rely on the balls to feet, holding play, trying to take people on in congested areas. And at the moment, that is not his forte. And each player has their strengths and weaknesses, and I think at what he's good at, he's world class at. But at those things, I don't think he is world class, and that's those aspects of his game, and that's where he's failing at the moment. And whether that's a team structural issue, or whether that is a formation. It was getting the best out of him last season, so there's nothing to say why can't he get the best out of him this season, but it just isn't at the moment. And you got look at the goals he scored against Leicester, even like those were worldies, which we know he's capable of, but you can't rely on scoring worldies week in, week out. You have to get those bread and butter running in behind, and goals which that's where you get 20 goals a season. You don't get 20 goals a season scoring 20 worldies. You have 5 or 6 of a season maybe, but you need those tap-ins and the ones where the formation works for you. And at the moment, I feel like that's where he's struggling, and it does beg the question whether he is ultimately, the way we're playing at the moment, whether he's completely perfect for that role as we see it. Because we see what Kulusevski can do. Well, his strengths are in one-on-one situations and are in congested areas. I think he lives in those areas, Kulusevski. And I see even yesterday him thriving a lot more. And even when he's maybe not scoring, he doesn't score as many goals as Son. He's still effective in the game when you give him the ball in these tight areas, and he can make something happen for you. He can turn a player a lot quicker in these tight areas and use his strength a bit stronger. Whereas Sonny at the moment isn't. So it's difficult what the solution is. Obviously, I don't see us signing a replacement for Son anytime soon, and obviously Richarlison's out, so we can't put him in. So we're going to have to persist, but it's interesting to see where this is going to head. Do we adjust his position? Do we put him maybe a bit further out wide where there's more space? But then those are the spaces where Perisic is operating. He's a bit further out wide. Who was fantastic
yesterday.
Who played well. So you don't want him to kind of take those spaces. So I don't know what the solution is right now for that Son conundrum.
So I think,
is it on him? Is it his fault? I don't know.
There's 2 things that I'm going to bring up now, and both through the World Cup. And the first thing that I'm going to bring up is, do you remember we were speaking when we were doing one of the watch-alongs together, and you said how these small teams are now getting so tactical. They're seeing what to do now. It's not just about these moments of magic. It's more about defending as a unit, being disciplined. I think a lot of people took notice that they all knew Son was great last season, or been great the seasons before, but in a 3 with Kulusevski and Kane, I think people became a lot more aware of, right, we need to stop Son. And I think these teams are doing their work on the training pitch to say, right, this is how we're going to utilise or stop Heung-min Son. And it's paying dividends for them. And I also think when we talk about the positions, I think we need to start looking at Perisic having a run up there, because we saw how good he was in the World Cup, playing as not permanently, but just as an option. We haven't used Perisic, I don't think, in that front 3 once. In a big game, and we saw the impact he had against for Croatia in the World Cup. And in that second half yesterday, he was getting forward more, he was nutmegging people, his crosses, we all know how lethal his crosses are, and that needs to be looked at as an option, I think. Not permanently, but when Son is doing this, maybe it is bringing a Sessegnon on, or putting Ben Davies at left wing back and moving Perisic up the pitch to have an impact, because he was doing bits for Croatia, and he looks like a different player when he's up there.
I agree that he had a very good World Cup in the left wing position. For me, I still think Perisic's best position is left wing back, in my opinion, in our team, because I think I know he had a good he did play well, but he was essentially playing like a left wing back for Croatia, but obviously a bit more further, with a bit more attacking responsibility than he does for Spurs, because we've got a front three ahead of him. But I felt like he was tracking back, he was doing all that dirty work, and when he was getting in those forward positions, because Croatia was sitting deep, usually when they get forward, they have a bit more space, which is like him at left wing back for us. I think if he was to play at left wing for us, I don't know if he would be as effective, because I think he finds those spaces at left wing back, because the fullback that we're up against is usually what you call it, is he's dealing with Son. So that fullback comes inside, leaving that space for Perisic to go on the outside and play him. If Perisic was the one who was getting all the attention from the fullback, I don't know if he would be as effective as he is at left wing back, in my opinion.
Surely it's worth a try to see if it works. You never know unless you try.
I think if Son continues like this, I think something's going to have to give, and I think that might be that could be something we can look at for a few games, just to see how that goes. Because I think Sonny at the moment isn't having the best time of it, and sad to say, because he's such a good player and I love him so much, but he needs something. Maybe we need a run of Perisic there. Maybe that could be a solution just temporarily. But for me, long term, I still think Perisic is a better wing back, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just want to say that as well, just before I get loads of hate saying that I'm anti-Son. It's got nothing about anti-Son. I love Heung-min Son. I think he's a fantastic world-class player, but he needs help. He needs help, and we have to look at options to solve this issue. And I think it's worth giving Perisic a go, maybe even in the FA Cup against Portsmouth, to say, right, here you go, let's give this a go. And see how it works, just to see if this is something we can add to our team. Should we need to change things around, as opposed to saying, "Oh, maybe it will, maybe it won't."
All right. In terms of where that point leaves us standing, though, we can bring up the phone just to get the table up there. There you go. We're still fourth after that point yesterday, after 16 games, which doesn't sound too bad, but. You got United behind, 2 games at 4 points behind, but 2 games in hand. They're going to be playing today. Liverpool now, they're coming into form. 1 game behind. They're 5 points behind with 1 game in hand. We are 2 points behind City, but they have 2 games in hand. We're now 3 points behind Newcastle in second, and obviously sitting there right at the top is something we don't want to see. We're now 10 points behind Arsenal. And they have a game in hand as well, which is Man City, which they might or might not win. But look, we're clearly in a dogfight for top 4. There's no doubt about it, and we can't afford to be, going too many more games without improvements in the side in terms of signings, and obviously we need players back from injury as soon as possible. But I mean, in terms of the league table at the moment, do you feel like our position is a bit like a house of cards, in terms of a few bad results, we could be in 6th or 7th, and all of a sudden everyone's going mad? Or do you still think we're in a solid position in the league, like 4th position, like the position right now isn't too much of a worry? We're still like, from this point on, 4th after 16 games, it's still like that's something to build on.
So I'm going to start calling this as I see it now, and I don't care about the blowback or the comeback on this. I'm not even concerned about. I'm concerned about top 6. I'm being deadly serious now, and you look at it. Newcastle are going to flex their muscles. Chelsea have been flexing their muscles. Liverpool have flexed their muscles. United will flex their muscles. We are in a very precarious position right now, and you look at these games. Villa at home isn't going to be easy. Palace away is one of those games that I absolutely fear whenever the football fixture list comes out. We've got to play the Filth at our ground. I'm dreading. It's the first North London derby at White Hart Lane that I'm absolutely dreading. We've got Man City twice, and I am very, very, very concerned about top 6. In all honesty, I'm not holding back anymore. I'm very, very concerned. I'm very, very concerned with what we're going to witness over the coming month.